So, what if the biggest problem facing our digital world isn't at all what we think it is? Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from the book, The Internet of Promises. This idea that we can actually rebuild our society on a foundation of verifiable commitments. Let's get right into it.
Right, so we hear all the time about misinformation, about fake news, but this book makes a pretty bold claim. The real crisis is deeper. It's about broken coordination. Our systems are just failing to help us work together, and because of that, trust is absolutely collapsing. And we're not just talking about trust in the media, but in the very institutions that are supposed to hold our society together.
And this crisis of trust, it really marks a turning point. It's what the book calls the age of broken promises. Kind of the twilight of an old way of trying to control our world.
For centuries, our world has run on what's called an architecture of obedience. You know the drill. It's top-down. You have governments, bosses, central servers, they issue commands, and everyone else is expected to comply. We put our trust in the institution at the top. But a totally new model is starting to emerge, an architecture of promises. This one is all about networked cooperation, about consent, and about trusting verifiable proof instead of just blind faith in authority.
So why is this old top-down model failing us so badly right now? Well, it really boils down to a few critical weaknesses. For one, centralized control just can't keep up in a world that's this complex. It doesn't scale. Plus, it creates these super fragile single points of failure. And over time, these rigid systems, they always drift away from what they were meant to do, which, you guessed it, leads to this massive collapse in public confidence we're seeing. The whole architecture is basically crumbling under its own weight.
Okay, so if the old rules of command and control are broken, what on earth replaces them? This is where things get really interesting. The book introduces this powerful new framework called promise theory, and it's a fundamental turning point in how we can think about cooperation.
This was developed by a computer scientist named Mark Burgess, and it completely flips the script. Instead of order being forced from the top down, it bubbles up from the bottom up. You have autonomous agents, and that could be people, software, anything really, making voluntary and verifiable promises to each other. Cooperation happens because we align our intentions, not because someone forces us to.
And this quote just perfectly captures the shift in thinking. A command, you must, well, that relies on some external authority to enforce it. But a promise, I will, that comes from a place of internal integrity, of personal responsibility. It's a huge move away from coercion and toward real commitment. And this isn't just a technical detail. It's a profoundly different way to organize ourselves.
But here's the thing. If we're going to build a system on promises, we have to understand that not all promises work the same way. Promise theory makes this really crucial distinction between two different kinds of trust they can create. So you've got two main flavors here. On one hand, we have bound promises. These are anchored to a specific identity. Think of a digital signature. It's a perfect example. You trust it because you can verify exactly who sent the message. Then on the other hand, you have negotiable promises. A dollar bill is the classic example. You don't care who printed it, you just trust what it guarantees, that it has value and can be exchanged. One is all about accountability, the other is all about exchange.
Now this distinction, it isn't just some abstract theoretical thing. These two types of promises are the actual building blocks for what the book calls the digital trinity, the practical foundation for a way more trustworthy internet.
All right, this is the digital trinity. First you have place, which is handled by DNS, the Internet's address book. It's the promise that a name points to a specific location. Second, you've got voice, which is enabled by protocols like Nostr. It uses signed events as a bound promise to prove who said what, super important. And third, there's value, using things like Chaumian tokens, which are basically a form of private digital cash. They act as a negotiable promise that can be passed around without surveillance. Put them all together, and these three pillars give us a foundation for our digital lives without needing some central ruler. And what's the engine that makes all of this possible? It's cryptography. This is the magic that transforms a simple moral promise, I'll keep my word, into a cold, hard, mathematical guarantee that anyone on Earth can verify for themselves. We don't have to just trust an institution anymore. We can literally trust the math.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us, for the future? Let's zoom out and really think about the massive implications of building a civilization on this new foundation of verifiable promises.
We are smack in the middle of a huge shift in where we place our trust. For centuries, it was all about these big, centralized institutions. But, as we all know, that trust is at a historic low. The future this book is pointing to is one where trust gets rebuilt, not on faith in these flawed institutions, but on transparent, verifiable mathematical proof.
Which, of course, leaves us with this one final, really provocative question. What does a world that's organized around verifiable proof instead of institutional faith, what does that actually look like? How does it change our politics, our money, how we even relate to each other when trust me gets replaced with verify me?
Ultimately, the core message here is both a warning and a vision of hope. It's that the future of our civilization doesn't depend on finding better leaders or stronger authorities. It depends on our ability to design systems that can make promises and, most importantly, give us the tools to prove that they're actually keeping their word.